in a lecture he delivered to some youth.
Mm-hmm.
And or made such recommendation. It's not a crime to look at countries doing well, to know how they have altered or changed their trajectory for the positives as a country.
Right.
And you're trying to replicate such, if need be, in your own climb for your own good. But the question is the misleading narrative that is behind it. First of all, let me deconstruct something. As at July 2023, just last year here, or even 31st December, the inflation rate in Zimbabwe is 107. So at what point has Zimbabwe exited inflation or got into a level that Nigeria now need to go learn or understand how they curb it? That is number one. Number two, let's look at comparative analysis of the economic trajectory of both countries. The economic system of Zimbabwe is built around tertiary economy, which means, you know, we have primary, secondary, and tertiary, which means more than 66.9% of the economic GDP of Zimbabwe revolve around service rendering, from tourism, not much manufacturing, but trading.
Right.
So, which means they import almost everything they do, and agriculture, which is on a PPP, public-private partnerships from abroad, foreign farmers, white farmers, coming to the country to invest their money and take the goods away and all that. That is purely tertiary economy that they are operating. While Nigeria on its own is operating a mixed economy built around the middle class system with expansion in manufacturing, with expansion in emerging markets. A lot of emerging markets. This is the biggest emerging market in Africa at the moment. Innovation and technology expanding in Nigeria, breaking the frontiers in that regard, and expanding our communication opportunities, while we are trying to evolve again to develop the critical industrial and mineral sectors. So we have different type of economies that we are operating. And what are we going to actually learn from a country whose debt to GDP at the moment is 69%. And the benchmark as recommended by the IMF for sub-Saharan Africa, debt to GDP is 44%. And Nigeria's debt to GDP at the moment is 22%. Do you understand? If the benchmark you should not go above is 66.6%, for example, and Nigeria debt to GDP is still at 22%, we are still very comfortable, even in the midst of the hardship. You want us to go to a country whose debt to GDP right now has already exceeded the benchmark. I'm talking of right now.
So you're saying the former president got off on the wrong foot?
Exactly. If you want to recommend countries for us to go learn from, pointing us to Zimbabwe is a slap.
Do you suspect he probably was being sarcastic about that recommendation?
I don't know. I don't want to look at the sarcasm. It almost made me reflect on him when he inherited a bastardized economy from the military. What did he do? The first thing he did was to run to IMF to go and give out $16 billion to the Paris Club and IMF people, that he could not, on the long run, we discovered that Nigeria was shortchanged, that President Buhari had to now work out a Paris Club refund fund that was now be shared as budget support for some states to revive about 32 states that were in economic bankruptcy in this country. This is the same man talking that you could carry. Right now, we're talking of CBN not having enough forex to finance our balance of payment that has been in deficit. Letters of credit that are due, 90 days, 60 days, letters of credit that are due.
Even long overdue.
Long overdue. At the point we are owing, we said we are owing these people 15 billion. Federal CBN was looking for $15 billion. You can imagine as at 2003, what was the value of dollar versus naira compared to now, where a city president will carry such amount of money to go and do what is called debt rediscount and call it debt forgiveness, that we will be forgiving debt. At the end of the day, we borrowed 12 billion. We were paid. They were telling us that we are now owing 32 billion, principal plus interest, and you now carry 60 billion to go and give to them. Who does that?
So you think that Paris Club debt forgiveness has...
They all contributed to this problem we are having today. We depleted our reserve. Imagine depleting your reserve with about $16 billion. And 20-something years later, these are the ripple effect. That we today now we have about $30-something billion in our reserve that can only, all things being equal, that we are not producing oil today, can only sustain Nigeria. We are not exporting anything. We are not any. If there is war in terms of a period of crisis now, Nigeria can only, with our reserve now, we can only survive between 5 to 7 months. Those who mismanaged our yesterday that have led us to today, they are not in the best position. I keep saying it. We should look for, there are great economists and great minds in Nigeria that can talk and I will listen. On what basis, what are we going to learn from a country with a 107% inflation? A country whose infrastructural deficit, the capacity for the Zimbabwean government to even finance their own public infrastructure is just 20%. They cannot finance 80% of their public, I'm talking about public infrastructure, not private infrastructure, from their own budget.
Let me ask you this.
We should be talking of how to grow Nigeria out of the woods we find ourselves. And growing it is not solely the responsibility of the federal government. It's the responsibility of the federal, the 3 tiers of government. What are they going to do right? Fiscal discipline. Absolutely. There is need to be fiscal discipline. Government spendings, bureaucracy restructuring, diversification, create incentives, social investment programs that are robust in a way that it trickle down, not the one that is being done at the federal level and the subnational government are not keen into it.
But is it so difficult for subnationals to key into what the
because we have not strictly social contract. We are protesting for hunger. When we're supposed to be protesting to our respective state governors to let us know how they are spending the trillions they've received in allocations since the removal of subsidy. We are battling inflation in one side. The same CBN, the same harsh economy that we said there is hunger, the CBN is battling to mop up too much cash. We are having too much liquidity.
So who is not telling the truth here?
Because the masses, the Nigerian people, does not know how to ask for the truth.
So how about everybody?
Nobody will serve you truth a la carte.
But people have been asking, even at the detriment of their lives, people have had to practically...
What are you asking? You are asking, are you asking the question in the right way? The right question, and to whom it may concern? Our bigger problem is to whom it may concern. Who are we asking? The responsibility of tying a state road or a local government road will keep asking the federal government. We'll channel our energy. We don't even know that there are microeconomists that are supposed to be the responsibility of the state governor and the local government. We don't know what is rural economy.
But I guess people are too hungry to even wrap their...
But we should not be, because there's no way about it. Then we'll continue to go around the circles.
Look, let's talk about the numbers for a minute. I mean, in April of last year, I remember I discussed the issue of inflation too with an expert like yourself. But fast forward to 11 months down the line, I mean, inflation is out the roof already, 29.9%.
Yeah.
Exactly. How do you address inflationary trend?
I just told you that when these structures, if they all agree,
that's
exactly, because this is the right time for every Nigeria to wake up and ask the states what are they doing, because they have fiscal responsibility too. They present budgets.
Right.
That means they have fiscal policies. This is not about you expect CBN to. CBN just drive a monetary framework to regulate your fiscal policy design. What is the fiscal policy designs of the 36 states in Nigeria? Local government present budget too because they receive allocations. What is the fiscal policy design of the 774 local governments in Nigeria? What is the definition of our national budget? You think the budget that Tinubu went to present in National Assembly is your national budget? It's a federal government budget. It's not a national budget. National budget is the aggregation of the federal government budget, the 36 state government budget, the 774 local government budget.
Put together.
Put together. That is what can drive Nigeria economy from the woods that we are finding ourselves. But any attempt to keep concentrating, when President Tinubu make an economic pronouncement now, that is what we will analyze. And we expect, if the economic pronouncement does not trickle to the state and local government, the impact will be minimal. Because the capacity for it to trickle lies on the total amount of revenue, the rate of, the level of revenue, the percentage of revenue it receives. It's not responsible. The money Nigeria wets, the Nigerian revenue at every given period of time, the total income of Nigeria does not go to the federal government account.
I know you're not a lawyer, but there are people who have also argued, I mean, on TV and off, about how that the Constitution has empowered governors so much in Nigeria. They are more like, for want of better words, Greek gods. That way, it gives them a lot of leeway to run away with public funds, misappropriation, sometimes outright theft, and so on and so forth. So is this not more of a systemic problem than just taking...
No. The Constitution still gives you the rights. We have right to organize NSAS. We didn't have right to organize police brutality. Do you realize that SAS is just a unit? Just a unit, not even a department in the police system. By the time the government says we have ended that unit, you were still on the road protesting what? You now change the narrative there, you are now breaching the law.
They said government changed the name, but the system itself did not change.
No, because you were not fighting the system, you say end SAS.
But they were also clear about end police brutality. So it's
that was not the original. That should have carried end corruption today. Okay, when you talk of a program or you are designing you are advocating for something, let it be all encompassing.
But it sounds like you are not comfortable with the idea of the NSAS in the first instance at all.
I'm comfortable with agitation for a better Nigeria.
Were you comfortable with the NSAS protest?
I said the protest was due. But the issue is, if you end SAS, are we going to end the special investigation CID? There is the highway patrol. There are different units. SAS is just a unit. Let us repackage this to become all encompassing. And then you now talk of, if you talk of economic hardship, for example, how do you protest in a state against federal government without going to the state governor, for the state governor to tell you what he's doing, and you see a governor coming out to criticize the federal government policy? What is your policy to drive the rural economy of your state as a governor? I see Obaseki coming out every now and they're talking about how this economic policy of the federal government is not going to work, how the monetary design of the CBN. For goodness sake, Governor Godwin Nogoga Obaseki, what is your fiscal policy direction in Edo State? How have you uplifted when Edo State is among the lowest, the state with the highest number of suffering from multidimensional poverty index that is not federal government driven? And nobody in that state today will ask a question.
But you are from that state. Have you asked a question?
I'll be asking on this platform. I'll be writing articles. Yes. And I have access to some of people in his government on social media. I tag them and I ask them. Some of them are my friends, some commissioners and co. But we have to say the truth. How are you implementing the budget of your state? Why are you grandstanding? You jump from your state. You will not be able to explain to the people of your state how you are utilizing their budget. What you are doing with the 18 local government allocation that you will house constitutionally. But to jump into the frail of national...
They have local government chairman in place now. Elections were...
Are they receiving the allocation directly now?
We need to hear those from the local...
We don't need to hear you ask.
But you said you'll be asking, but nobody's talking to you.
No, because the JAC still exists. The JOT account still exists. You still warehouse the money. Where the state governors now pay the administrative expenses of local government, making the local government almost moribund, making them incapacitated to do their own duty of providing those necessary amenities as provided in the Constitution, what their own constitutional responsibility that is enclaved in the residual list of the 1999 Constitution.
Well, let's move away from Obaseki and Edo State for a second, Aruna.
No, I'm talking of governor. I'm using it's just an hypothetic inference.
The others,
of course, because of course,
yeah.
They are bound from Imo to anywhere. They are bound. If 16 states work in Nigeria, Nigeria will work.
Oh, great! That sounds.
If 16 states economically become viable in Nigeria, then it will stratify, multiply effects in the entire system.
So let's hope that works. But in the meantime, we're talking inflation now. We're talking,
yes,
as some people will call it, fifth crisis, economic hardship, and so on and so forth. But everybody's talking about the CBN, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and all what have you. Does it not appear to you that the CBN is probably, I mean, we're looking the wrong direction for answers?
I told you on this program that what the CBN does is macroeconomics.
Exactly, that's the point.
What other components, subnationals of government does is micro. In economics, the microeconomy deals with household economics, units, household units, firms, rural economy. The CBN responsibility is to aggregate what is happening across the states and local government. Their own is aggregation. Design policy that will help you to aggregate it. What do you expect him to aggregate? If you give him negative, if the feedback is negative from across all the state and local government, the result is going to aggregate will be negative, isn't it?
That's the point I'm making, because it appears that...
So until we get that still goes back to what I am saying, that the rural economy must work for our macroeconomic indices to improve.
How much of work do we need to put in place?
I've said it now. The diversification effort of the federal government should trickle down. It's not limited to federal government.
Is government actually, in practical sense, diversifying this economy?
Of course. A lot has happened. Look at it from after COVID-19. Why did we, after the minus negative growth figures that remove us into positive? What remove us from the recession? When we're having oil glut, where we didn't have who to supply oil after COVID-19. Where we had 600 loads of sheep in the sea that could not deliver.
But some people said that was OPEC plus politics. It's
not about whatever OPEC and its politics, another discussion. It's a discussion for another day. But agriculture took us from the woods. There were a lot of reforms done by the Buhari administration in the solid minerals sector and industrial minerals.
Are they paying off?
Those were the significant impact they made that took us from the woods of from negative to positive in GDP. So the question we should be talking about, how do we sustain it? Today, take it or leave it, 80% of the rice that is being branded today as foreign rice, they are local rice, rebranded in foreign bags because we are wicked people. Go and do your research. When you are eating it, you will just know that this is Nigeria rice. But because our psyche is about foreign, they'll go and rebag. It's all rebag. Either they miss it or they rebag it totally in foreign bags and branded foreign rice. That means the agriculture is actually working. We might not be there yet. So what we need to do, how do we sustain it? How do we open it more? The agriculture as a policy is in the executive, is in the concurrent list, which means the state government who owns the land. The land does not belong to the federal government under the Land Use Act of 1999 as amended.
Yes, I think that stops with the government.
And land is a factor of production.
Apparently. So
if the governor controls the land and they cannot utilize it to diversify into productive ends, create the value chains that the agri sector actually need. Mining is in the land. Minerals are in that land. Adam Smith, if we read it, The Wealth of the Nation. Then you will now begin to appreciate that how can a GDP of 1.1 trillion, $1.15 trillion, that is the total value of our nominal GDP as the entire economy worth of Nigeria. You want us to go and learn from an economy of less than $66 billion.
Now that you're talking economy, I mean the Nigerian economy, you once said on this program that what we operate is the voodoo kind of...
I just explained to you, I said mixed, because it's all round.
Yes, right.
The more you look, why it become voodoo? Because those who are supposed to key into the workings.
Right.
No matter, we have had the best of economics policies in this country.
So policies are not our problem?
They are never our problem. Policy direction and implementation has been our problem. When a policy implementation process does not trickle down, how do you expect, for example, Empower? Empower was one of the best social investment program of former President Muhammadu Buhari. But Muhammadu Buhari cannot pay all the unemployed or unemployed graduate money. What did he do? He said 5,000 per state. Did any state domesticate Empower, state Empower in their state that has similar program? Why do you expect as a governor, the president should be paying the unemployed people in your state alone? And the president has limited resources, so because the constitution shared the money between you and him.
But the federal government does not have states now.
You said?
The federal government does not have states. So the people the federal government will pay, whatever the name of the initiative is, will still come from various states.
That's what I'm saying. I said he said 5,000 per state.
So you were thinking maybe there should be a counterpart idea?
No. When you domesticate it, for example, states empower.
Right.
Edo states empower.
So you bring
if
it
the federal
closer to
government, you now add to it. If the federal government is taking 5,000 people from Edo state, for example, Obaseki now create his own. That I will be taking 3,000.
As a state?
As a state. If federal government is paid at 30, the state can say I will be paying 15 or 20. That means 8,000 has left. Each local government will now say, we'll do our own local government empower. You understand? We'll be paying 1,000 people. That means we have taken 9,000 people. Do you understand?
It sounds interesting, but this
that is the program.
These things are not like a hot knife through butter.
It's not, because it was not like a hot knife through butter when the federal government did it. Did he not do it? Did the federal government not implemented it? As far as empower is concerned, testimony abounds. It's not any other one that is okay. Conditional people were no. People actually felt the impact of empower. Did any state domesticate it? Did any state replicate such in their own state as a state government? Soludo saw all this in 2004 when he propounded NEED, National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, NEEDS, at the national level, at the federal level. He now proposed that the states should carry it to their states, look at it, considering the peculiarity of each state,
right,
domesticate it as SEED, State Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy. Then the local government will take it as LEAD,
right, Local
Government Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy. So that whatever macro policy framework that comes from up, you now domesticate it along with the peculiar state of your economy, and it will trickle down in effect. Then the rebound, when the rural economy now starts growing, the man at the top who is driving the national will now be aggregated properly. Today, how many states have their own state office of statistics? We have a national bureau of statistics that we expect to go round. So even our statistics, to me, is fault.
These are very complicated problems. But let's talk about...
They ought not to, and these are the solutions.
And they are getting more complicated by the day.
Because if we don't do it, we keep going around the circle. We now become as if the word I use that we are operating a voodoo system. The more you look, the less you see abracadabra.
From what you know, I mean, as an expert, what are some of the best ways, depending on the peculiarity of your realities,
yes,
to cut down inflation numbers?
For example, now, the state government, when the federal government designed policies to curb inflation, you understand, at its federal level, as a state, you embrace it, look at it. What do I add? What do I remove?
What should be that way? I mean, in what way should the federal government be curbing inflation at this point?
I just explained to you now. To curb inflation is to improve in food production. Food production, because what we are having now is more of consumer-driven inflation. Food production, and how do you get into the food production we're talking about? Then agriculture needs to be well invested into, both private and public. What are the programs that the government need to do? And these programs are not limited. Agriculture belongs to that particular list that every tier of government have the same power. The local government chairman power, as far as land is concerned, or agriculture is concerned, is equal to the power of President Tinubu as far as agriculture is concerned.
But he doesn't have all those resources.
Which resources? You are doing it at your micro level, at the rural level. What does the rural farmer need? A subsistence farming. What does a rural citizen need as far as infrastructure is concerned? For example, health-wise, basic health center or maternity. They didn't say you should go, because the constitution that gives you the money knows what you can do. They did not say you should go and build a general hospital or a national hospital. You understand my point? But today,
it has to be you.
Today, the federal government is the one building health centers. basic health care, 55 billion is just being provided again now to support them for primary health care. Primary health care cannot be undertaken solely again by the tiers of government who own the responsibility by law to do it.
This week, I just want to deflect a little, but again, still within the sphere of the economy. President Tinubu has said that Nigerian economy is not in turbulence. Do you share that opinion?
Of course, not in the way we are looking at it.
You think we are hyping it?
If we do proper cooperative analysis and where we and why is speaking from the plans and things that are rejigging itself. You understand? At a point here, we're talking of naira to dollar at almost 2,000 naira. And I told you that everything is being driven speculating manipulation. But today, I think it's around what has changed.
But some people still argue and say, where did he meet the naira again?
It's not about where you met it. If you want to use that one, where did Obasanjo met it in 1999?
So you live it worse than you met it? Is that the point?
It's not about
and that's fine?
It's world over. So what we need to do to make the naira improve is not necessarily your monetary economic design, those to copy the manipulative aspect, the speculative aspect is just, as I said again, is secondary. The primary issue is to build this economy on production. When you now have what is called, you concentrate on import substitution goods, where you are not producing those things. When you derive food sufficiency, I'm not even talking of food security, because they are two different things. If Nigeria score well, if 16 states today can survive without, for example, if our state can survive without bringing tomatoes from Kano, if our state can survive without bringing rice from Kano, from North, bringing meat from North, just imagine all that money that goes there, what it will do when it stays back. You use it to farm these things in your states. The same thing with Nigeria as importing food products from abroad. Then your import bill will reduce. When your import bill reduces, remember, the comparative, this thing, when you compare what you import and what you export, that is balance of trade. Your balance of trade will be driving towards the positive. But right now it's in the negative. Because what we import is way more than what we export. And then what you earn to import this thing is less. And that is why, thank God, for example, now, why Tinubu is also seeing some leeway after some light after the tunnel is the fact that the oil production is opening up. We are targeting, for the first time in recent years, we are targeting the 2 million barrels
per day.
Yeah, we are. Information says we are around 1.8 something now. Because at the time we were at 1.5, 1.3.
Sorry, I need to bump in quickly. This is not me being rude. I'm just curious. Is this so much about the volume of oil production, crude production, and whatever the price is at the international market, or what you do with the money? I mean, we've heard about windfall in this country. How did that rub up?
We are not talking of windfall anymore.
I'm just saying.
We are saying we should not look at the mismanaged yesterday. Of course, because somebody is down, because we need the money. When the volume of production improves, we earn more money to drive all the policies. Today, as it sits today, Nigeria needs 100 to $150 million every year to drive infrastructure. I'm talking of the 3 tiers of government.
Right.
Our infrastructural deficit is to the tune of $2.3 trillion.
And that's a whole lot to swallow.
So how do you need money to do this? And when you don't build this infrastructure drive the economy on its own.
Right.
Because localization of industry. What factor do you consider when you want to cite industries? You cite the market, you cite other economies of scale, good roads and other things. If those social infrastructure are not there, how will the people that you want them before the FDI improve your economy?
I'm afraid that's the much time we'll allow us to talk about this morning. Haruna Ibrahim is always very exciting, all right, having this conversation with you. And we're just going to leave it there, and I will hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
And that's our program for you, everyone. Thank you so much for watching Global Morning. Remember the views of our guests and their opinions. I'm Muya Agumofwegwe. On behalf of my colleagues here at Global Television Abuja, we'll say thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the strike.
You have done your work, you have put us to the wall. We are not the slaves.
I'm not a small boy. You should have given me the report.
I have not seen the report.